The ticks are definitely around here. We've had a very good turnout last night at the North Bridge, and most of the people in the parties are already out in the field. But you know some of these people. You know Matt Byrne, who works at Walden Woods Project, ran the vernal pool thing here for a while.
Yeah, so they were able, they've bred and their tadpoles have come up, and now we're
metamorphosed and hopping around.
And now he's got, he's on his way, He got a bit to be about that size. Yeah.
Right, I've already found 2.
Good, that's really nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We also passed a depredated turtle nest on the way in.
Good. And what did that damage?
Well, crows will do this.
Yeah.
Fox, really anything with a nose and.
Yeah.
And,
how do you know it wasn't? Oh yeah, because the interior, it didn't get to develop actually.
Right,
no.
and the nest was really quite torn apart.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You find that in floodplain forests frequently, just a recently dug hole, and then the turtle shells all scattered around, and the footprints of the villain.
Yeah, that's right.
Usually a raccoon.
Yes.
Yeah. You know how people just.
Oh, I know. I've never really bought the argument that tourism should be suppressed, ecotourism, because it upsets the environment.
Yeah.
Maybe there are a few spots like that, but I'll tell you, I don't think by and large that's the case, that it's significant, because often you have a choice between getting a place that's a reserve with tourists, making a tourist attraction of it on the one side versus cutting it all off and putting a development in or a highway through or whatever.
Yeah.
And there's just no comparison. Well, tourism is now, generally, up to the $1 trillion level. It's the biggest business in the world. And we have to convert as much as possible of that over to ecotourism. And then you're on your way, at least for some places in the world. Well, $1 trillion, that's 2% of the world domestic product, the total world product. That's 2% of it. That's pretty good.
Are you a herb?
No, I'm a herpetologist
Everything's in shorthand. I call you guys herbs.
Herper.
Herper? Oh, that's better. I like that.
I'm a vernal pool ecologist. That's sort of been my specialty over the years.
Oh, wow.
Where do you work?
I worked 10 years for the Natural Heritage Program in Mass, and then I'm at the Walden Woods Project now.
Oh, yeah.
So you think you should
And it's vernal pools that your central interest, is that right?
Correct.
But herpetology is a major interest too.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah. What I love about vernal pools is just the richness
Yeah.
of organisms. And so I got into it through herpetology. But as I started to learn the invertebrates, the aquatic macroinverts are unbelievable. And
Yeah, it is. It's true.
their richness is just
Yeah,
so
true.
much fun to explore.
Yeah. There's an equivalent. Someday, if you were ever in the Florida Panhandle, which still has lots of relatively undisturbed areas, minus the longleaf pine, which is cut off. It's former savannas.
Yeah.
And the great longleaf pine savanna covers 60% of the coastal plain. And scattered throughout it are what they call domes.
Yeah.
And these are clusters of hardwood, which are wet soil adapted. They have, TT swamp holly, things like that.
Right.
And they have, essentially they don't call them that, they have vernal pools in the rainy season.
Yeah, so the domes are actually...
That's the vegetation that grows up around the vernal pools.
Yeah, but they're depressed land. And
It's depressed. It's a depression in the savanna.
vegetation.
That's right, yeah.
So you're also involved with a project to try and document all the species in the world, if I remember correctly?
I invented it.
Oh, you did? Well, then I guess you're involved.
So, yeah, that's the encyclopedia of life, yeah. It was sprang from a proposal made in 2003. And it's received a substantial grant from the MacArthur Foundation and is now operating at full speed, headquartered at the Smithsonian. That's to find and record everything known about every species. I think they'll probably reach that point in about 10 years. But then, of course, we've got millions of more species to find.
I would imagine there's quite a few that you don't even know exist at this point.
I would estimate, well, excluding the bacteria, I would say at least 5 times that, you know, up around 10 million at least, unknown, that of the total. In other words, we may know 20% of the species that are larger than bacteria. But when you throw in bacteria, then nobody knows what the bacteria are. They're not scarcely begun to explore those. So most of the living world is unexplored. You might not be able to say that right by Estabrook Woods, but you can sure say it about a large number of other places around the world.
Ed, you've been kind of on a campaign about, you know, getting microbiologists to find out what's in that square inch of dirt.
That's
is
right.
That happening? I mean,
Oh yeah, big time.
it is. Okay.
It's what was needed was not their lack of interest. I mean, interest where it was a lack of interest. It was technology,
Oh, okay.
and genomics now is developed to the point where you can do it very fast now. You can identify, or you can do a complete genetic map of a bacterium in under 4 hours.
Wow.
It's going faster and faster, cheaper and cheaper. But the amazing thing is that you can take one handful of soil from right here, 1 gram, and you will have 1 billion, about 1 billion bacteria in that. And they would belong to about 5,000 to 6,000 species on average, almost none of which are known to science. It's that unknown. I mean, this is just an unknown world at our feet.
You say that Indian pipe?
Pipe, like smoking a pipe, yeah. It's a parasite, meaning that it doesn't make any chlorophyll or make its own food. It just grows out of the tissue of a root down there, right?
Carpenter ants in my garden are constantly
Yeah.
biting me when I'm trying to garden. They're always biting.
Exactly. Yeah, it's not going to stay with you.
Crawled on me once, and then
Yeah, that's a carpenter ant. That's a small one. Yeah, that's what it is. Yeah, that's the biggest ant species around here. And
And they bite.
yeah, very successful ant species. They bite.
Ed,
There's one. I was going to say that another species of that genus is one of the several largest ants in the world, found in Borneo. Its name is Camponotus gigas, and it has the biggest head of any ant. The soldiers do, and they can just slice right through your flesh like that.
Wow.
If you try to pick one
you
up.
put it to your mouth and
No, I crush it. For the
And you
best
smell
smell.
it?
And you can tell a lot of species by smell.
wow.
Yeah. But that's only in a few parts of the world. In most parts of the world, there are a number of them that have a strong smell. But around here,
But
there's
strong
one.
enough for the layperson to notice
Oh,
it?
goodness gracious, yeah, it's very strong. Just crush it. And if it smells like citronelle, you know,
Yeah, like the citrus,
Lotion.
yeah.
that's one of the members of the genus Lagius. They're yellow ones you find on the ground. If it smells like, forgive me, a unwashed armpit, that's a little ant called Taponoma sesali. Yeah. So you can spot those with just that, but in another part of the world, you wouldn't want to use.
teeny ones there.
What's this? Oh yeah. You know, I'm getting a new lens in 2 weeks, so I'm having trouble.
Progeny.
Yeah, hold on, let me just, wait a minute.
As they start up your arm.
Yeah. That is a genus called Paratrechina. There's nothing special about them, and when I crush it, you're not going to get the odor. That,
So that's, so you lick
but
it.
something that, yeah, I'm just getting it to
Trying to
capture
get
it.
it to stick.
Yeah,
Get it to stick, yeah,
that's a good method.
yeah. And
Get the one on me.
yeah, I'll just squish it there too fast. So I'm pretty sure, there we are. Wait a minute, no, I'm wrong. Crush one and see, that's Taponoma sessile.
Taponoma sessile.
Yeah, Tapinoma, Taponoma sessile, Sessile, sessile. And what you're smelling is something like methylheptanone, which is used by them as a defense substance and also as a, can you smell it?
Yeah, I can.
Oh yeah, sure.
And with those red ones in there,
Killing them all.
Yeah.
There's a whole bunch.
Sweet. Almost.
Especially something that
I
tiny.
just keep
Sorry,
smelling my mosquito repellent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Oh, I smelled that one. Fairly common around here.
Yeah, that's what we call, they're using what we call the alarm defense technique, which I first worked out around here in these woods. with,
Heptanone, did you say like a ketone?
yeah, yeah. Methylheptanone is a very common thing that they may be using. I've forgotten what they have, but it's something,
Now,
a
is
very
that
simple thing.
considered one of their pheromones? Is that?
Yeah, they use it, that's my point. They use it to alarm one another when they're being attacked, but they also use it for defense. It's neat, you know. One substance serves two. You get attacked, squirt it on the enemy, and that draws the other ants in. They say, help, help, come to my help, my aid.
That's similar to when like a bee stings someone, it sends a message and the whole hive comes.
That's right, that's the sting pheromone. Yeah, it comes out with a sting. Yeah, and that smells like banana.
Oh.
Yeah, try it sometime. Just take a handkerchief and go up to a honeybee.
Yep.
You know, if you feel all right about killing a honeybee. What you do is go up and get it, catch it in a handkerchief, and let it sting the handkerchief. That's what it'll do for sure. Then you pull it open, you take that bee away, making sure that the sting, which has reverse barbs on it, stays. So let the bee fly away, and take the sting, and you'll see a little tissue on the end, and that's the poison gland. And you take that and you squeeze it, and it'll smell like banana. Wow. That's what, yeah, I've forgotten the substance. That's what is released in the air when you start getting stung, and they all come at you.
In Venezuela, I was in the Orinoco region. They eat these, they make sauce out of the ant heads, the fire ant heads, to eat. They put the sauce the way we do soy sauce on things. On
Yeah,
meat and
is that right?
rice.
Yeah. I'm not surprised because it's some of these substances I've just been talking about would be, you know, serve the same function for them as the plant spices do.
Oh, okay.
You know, the plants evolve these spices in order, well, not in order, but they serve to repel insects, right?
Oh, yeah, okay.
And anything that's going to eat the plant. So, but for human taste, if they're not poisonous, they give a piquancy to the taste of your food. So that would be the same thing as using a bee head
Oh, okay.
or an ant head.
Yeah. They use the soldier in. Yeah, that,
Just add a little flavor.
yeah.
Yeah, little bite, so to speak.
I find it fascinating that they use a certain ant species to make stitches if they cut themselves.
Those leaf cutter
Yeah. No, it's the army ant. Army ant soldiers. The leaf cutter ants, if you do that with a soldier, it'll just make another cut. But well, the army ant soldiers, which you can find by finding a column of them somewhere, they have sickle-shaped mandibles.
And hang on.
Yeah, well, you let them bite on the close the wound, and then you let the ant bite right on the top of it. And the jaws, if you do it just right, the jaws will pass through, and they lock like that.
And so they stay locked.
Yeah, they stay locked, and then you cut the head off, And you can just use that to suture an entire wound.
Wow, that's amazing, huh? So do the soldier ants travel at the front of the column?
No, they're all along. You see them when the column is running. Or especially if it's a swarm raid, you know, it's one that's advancing as a front.
Right, so it's not a single line, it's a whole...
That's right, it's advancing as a front. And you'll see the soldiers scattered all through there.
So they sort of protect the perimeter, or?
Yeah, they're protecting the ants from larger predators. There'd be mammals and things like that, yeah.
Because we had a lot of old trees from the Hurricane 38 that were rotting up.
It's so pretty.
This is pretty good weather for
What is it?
It's some kind of mushroomy.
Oh, yeah. Well, this is going to be a great mushroom season, isn't it?
boy, I guess.
Yeah,
I would expect it.
just caught my eye. As you
Yeah, yeah.
It's a nice one.
Jewel colors.
So in a column of ants like that, if a predator did come, like whatever would be eating, I assume. it's
Well, it'd be
one
more
ants,
a
right?
smaller predator, especially. I mean, some kind of a bird or
Oh, okay.
a rodent that would want to be catching the prey that the ants themselves are carrying, or the ants are feeding on the ants themselves. They'd run into these big soldiers that are able of piercing their skin.
So they would really, those soldiers would
And-
really
and-
deter the predator.
Yeah, that's right.
They would bite them hard enough to make them go away.
That's their only function. They run with the columns and they go after anything that disturbs the ants. And they use those jaws. They're needle sharp, you know, just.
So they actually have a venom, or is it just a physical?
They sting. Well, they do two things. One end they sting you, and at the other end they bite you with those huge jaws.
Oh, okay. So can they sting multiple times, or?
Yeah, multiple times, right. You've probably noticed that some you know, the honeybee stings you once
Right.
and really clobbers you because the gland that has the poison,
Right.
if you look at it closely, if you allow it to sting something, it keeps pumping. It's pumping the venom down down the sting. But a lot of others, like hornets, will sting you and then move along and sting you again.
We have some very small red ants in our yard that have a
Yeah.
heck of a sting, and they're
Yeah.
deceptively small. Maybe twice as big, 3 times as big as the little ones that we just looked at.
Yeah.
It's almost like a yellow jacket venom. It feels like that same.
Well, I know what it is. That's an alien. That's one of the few alien species we have. It's,
Oh, really?
No wonder
Yeah.
we don't like them that much.
They
They're
are
aliens.
unbelievable.
That's why we don't like them, because they're
Absolutely,
aliens.
yeah. Well, that is from Europe. It's called Myrmica rubra. And it's on the yards, lots of yards around
It
Boston.
likes it wet. It
Yeah, is that
likes to
right?
hang out down by our stream and in the rotted
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah.
Well, it actually likes disturbed things. Anytime there's an old piece of metal or something that I pull out of the ground, the egg nests are all over that.
Yeah, they can really sting.
They can really sting. It's
They're one of the few ants in the area that can give you a healthy sting.
One was on a strawberry once, and I ate it, and I got stung inside my throat.
Oh, that gotta hurt.
Yeah. I
a
was
while to
worried. I
figure
thought
out
you were
what
going to
was gonna
die.
happen.
Yeah.
Well, it's good to know they're aliens. And do you have an idea of when they came? We live in a part of the...
It's impossible to say, but my guess is fairly recent.
Oh.
Really?
That's the last 100 years or less, because they've spread to other parts of the country in Midwest. So they just seem to be spreading now. And then, but there's another ant that's found all over. That's the pavement ant. Little slender ants that are hard-bodied. You see them in masses
Yes.
on the pavement.
Yes,
Yeah.
the cracks in pavement, yes.
That's European too. Helen.
This is Matt Collette from the Boston
Hey, Dr.
Globe.
Wilson, how are you
How
doing
are you?
today?
Glad to see you.
Finding anything of interest so far?
Yeah, you can't avoid it.
Dr. Wilson was the first one to discover that there were fire ants
In the United States.
in the United
Yeah,
States. Now, how
first-
old were you then?
13.
I don't know if you want to hear the story or not.
No.
I think I've got to hear that story.
What?
13, you found fire ants.
Oh
How
yeah.
did that happen?
Okay, well let's put it in a general and more important context. The way to get people reconnected with nature, and we badly need it for all kinds of reasons, including broad education, future environmental protection, understanding the real world. One of the most important steps is to get kids back out into nature and do it in a way that they find compelling, compellingly interesting. And one of the best ways in the world to do that is to get them along on bio-blitzes. Well, I call them they're here in Massachusetts. Massachusetts does everything differently, you know. And we call them biodiversity days here. And everywhere else in the world, they're called bio-blitzes. Bio with blitz, you know. No hyphen, bio-blitz. The best way is to get kids on these excursions because it's a combination treasure hunt, exploration, you know, finding new places, new things, and the most wonderful way in the world to get naturalists together with kids frequently. You know, because naturalists are the finest people in the world, the nicest people in the world. At any rate, so I got started. You know, I don't know, there were personal circumstances, I guess, that made me a kid that liked to get out very early. And I was looking through the town of, through the streets of Mobile, where I was doing a Boy Scout project. And I had decided by that time that I wanted to work on ants when I grew up, you know, to be an ant specialist. And I found, I was trying to see all the different kind of ants that were there in the neighborhoods of Mobile. And I came upon a mound nest of fire ants. They had been introduced from, we now know, southern Brazil, or Argentina, somewhere along the River Platte, to the United States by cargo brought into the port of Mobile. And I found the first ones, first nest. So a kid can make discoveries.
But was that significant? Did they wind up turning getting rid of the red ants as a result of you finding them?
No. When I did that, then it was subsequently found. They did not from what I found, but from a journalist on the Mobile Press Register who was working. He was an Atlanta top operator, and he was working on the side as the outdoors and wildlife editor. And he started. He was discovering that the farmers, small farmers especially, garden farmers and others, that didn't have big land plots, were getting eaten alive by these ants. And hunters were complaining that these ants that had come in, the fire ants, were killing bob white and other ground nesting and breeding animals when they were very young. So as a result of that, when I was a senior at University of Alabama, the Department of Conservation hired me. I was a senior, 19 years old, senior at Alabama, to do the first survey. And it was then that I discovered that the ant was spreading out of Mobile 5 miles a year.
Wow.
They do it by making thousands of queens. Each colony has somewhere around 200,000 workers at maturity, and they release queens, virgin queens by the thousands, and males that mate with the queens, and the queens then fly. And they were reaching as far as 5 miles out. And that's why we've watched the fire ant grow across the South, North Carolina, to Texas, through Florida, out onto the islands, the West Indies islands, across from Texas over to California, spreading through California. From California, it made it to China and New Zealand and Australia. It's a wonderful ant.
Could the ants have ever come here by themselves? I mean, could they eventually spread up here by natural means?
They're very sensitive to winter. They can take a freeze or two,
Right.
but a prolonged cold weather, you know, the kind we have in New England.
I mean, could they have spread from South America to North America or over land eventually?
Oh no, well no, they didn't, because when you go down to their natural environment, which has been done, and you can see how they behave naturally.
Right.
They are not common. They're not that common because they've evolved over probably millions of
Right.
years. I have fire ants from the Dominican amber of another species, Dominican Republic, 30 million years old. Unmistakable fire ant, a different species from the one in the U.S. But in southern, warm, temperate South America, that's what we're talking about.
Yeah.
They adapted and they evolved over millions of years ago. They just adapted to be part of the fauna.
Of the whole ecosystem.
They were controlled by parasites.
So they had predators
and
too.
Predators.
Right.
When they got here, then they didn't have anything like that. And they had an ideal environment for them ready-made, which incidentally, I don't want to get too far afield, but it was their special adaptation is to flooded land. When the water starts coming up where they live, as in the famous big wetlands of southern Brazil, the Pantanal. As the water starts coming up, these ants have developed a behavior in which all 200,000 workers form a raft of their own bodies, and the queen is pulled inside the middle of it, and all the young there, and they keep moving up with the water, and if it reaches the surface, they just park there, and then when the water rises higher, they drift downstream and float. And then when they reach a solid piece of land, you know, like a little higher rise in the land, or a log sticking out, they disperse and take it. We also have European earthworms. Did you know that?
No, and so they just sort of.
All of the earthworms here are European.
They must be good swimmers then.
What?
They must be good swimmers.
No, the Pilgrims brought them over,
Yeah.
almost certainly. And it's not well known, you should have worn long pants. It's not well known that, that they are wreaking havoc on the humus, what we call the duff, you know, just under the leaves.
Right.
The whole layer of slowly decaying plant material that's just after a few inches starts to segue into soil. And it's a very important layer for the support of variety of life, any place like this. And the earthworms are European, and they are not well adapted to the environment, so they just are destroying it as they migrate very slowly westward. That's something happening under our feet most people don't even know about.
So there was no equivalent of earthworms here before they brought those over here?
There were no earthworms here.
Really?
The glaciation. Wow. The last glaciation took them all out. Wow. But you can find them to the south, and I don't believe these European earthworms are making headway in the areas south of the maximum reach of the last glacial advance. But all here, when the earthworms just didn't get back here in any numbers, of native ones. So our good forebears, the Puritans and all those who came afterwards, were carrying, of course, soil and potted plants, and they were throwing it out. They were just planting the area and earthworms and various other introduced insects and small creatures. We have large numbers of European species, especially in disturbed areas, because the movement and transport was historically from Europe to here. They're relative, and when we cleared this space, the Europeans cleared all the land, then they made it more like Europe, which has been clear of land for 1,000 years. And so what was done was to take the soil of the European settlers coming in, including the earliest, was taking the soil with plants they were transporting, European crop plants. And they were gathering up species ideally suited for fields and open areas, hedgerows and so on, and dumping them on Massachusetts. So when we were clearing Massachusetts, you know, in the eastern United States, from this kind of forest, we were changing the whole environment of the ground from that's very closely adapted to a forest ground, level ground. We changed it to a European-like open field and scrub wood ground. So that's why we have so many Europeans.
Can I ask you can you talk about the significance of the place here and Henry Thoreau and having Biodiversity Day held in this area?
What you should know and share with readers, I hope, please do, is the significance of where you are now. Walden Woods, the Estabrook Woods, and these are wonderful natural areas, particularly the Estabrook Woods, but also the Walden Woods. And when you go to Walden, you will see forest returning there in large swaths. But the real importance of Walden and the woods, the thin strip of woods immediately around it, was where Henry David Thoreau, Thoreau, pronounced Thoreau. Henry David Thoreau, of course, is a huge figure in American history. And the Thoreau Institute, which is near Walden Pond, of which Kathy Anderson is the director, is a very important center for study and dissemination of information about Thoreau, the Walden Pond, and that whole period of American history, which, as you well know, is extremely important in America's intellectual and literary history. I won't go into too much to just name, you know, people like Hawthorne and Emerson and the Alcotts, and you get an idea, and then Henry David Thoreau. Thoreau, who lived in that little hut that he built, 20 to 30 minutes walk from his mother's house in Concord, where he could get his clothes washed and a decent meal once in a while, is credited as being the founder of the conservation movement in the United States. And if he was the founder in the United States, then we have to go back to the upper 1840s. That just about means founder of the conservation movement in the whole world. Okay, Henry David Thoreau. But he was a very significant philosopher, a literary figure, and he was also a very fine naturalist at a time when there were not very many naturalists in North America or in the whole Western Hemisphere. He was busily studying fine details of the life around him, including the flowering cycle of plants, the succession of plants as they grew up in fields, the phenomenon that later became a basic principle of ecology. Henry David Thoreau was arguably the first American ecologist. At least he was a forerunner of the modern science of ecology. So it's very important for people, including especially young people, to recognize that Walden Pond is a very important place, and that Thoreau, its first its first naturalist and champion, a very important part of American history. And that is why we come here.
And it was 164 years ago today that he moved to Walden Pond.
Right.
To the day.
Right.
He moved on Independence Day.
Yeah, that's right. And that's, I think, the reason Peter wanted to start the first in Biodiversity Day. 11 years ago, Peter Alden, who is here, and you should definitely interview him because he's a modest guy who goes around trying, well, he is. He goes around trying to give me credit. It was his idea, the first Biodiversity Day 11 years ago. The idea was for Biodiversity Day, which we held on July 4th, 1998, was to invite naturalists and experts on different groups of organisms, from spiders and snails to dragonflies to turtles and, you know, the whole thing, plants, trees, everything, fungi, from around New England to come join us on a party to see how many species of plants and animals could be found by a group of experts. And there are lots of people who are professional, but more who are amateur and first-rate naturalists. I've discovered that New England is teeming with experts on damselflies, fungi, and you don't hear about them. It's a hobby. It's something they enjoy doing. You only need a couple, you know, in an area of, say, most of New England to get together and share knowledge and get professional grade scientific information and so on. So the invitation went out to these sorts of people, and a very large number came on that first day and swarmed all over the place. The idea being to, how many species can you find in 24 hours? You can ask Peter about the exact number.
1,900.
Oh, I'm way off. Does that include the moose?
Yes.
Because there was a number, it may have been 1904, and a moose showed up in Concord
Hard to miss.
the next day, yeah, and they added that. At any rate, it was a great success. It was repeated in Massachusetts. It was even supported for a couple of years by the Massachusetts Department of Environmental Affairs. But meanwhile, it was started spreading around the country to an untold number of states and localities. Two I attended were in Rock Creek Park. It was picked up, has been picked up, and is being pushed by the National Park System, by the National Geographic Society, through the country, and has been held in at least 18 other countries now. Started right here 11 years ago. Now that's worth reporting.
I'm Kathy Anderson from the Walden Woods Project. As most of you know, our organization's engaged in the conservation of historic Walden Woods, and we also do a number of important education programs, not the least of which is something called Worldwide Waldens, where we engage youth from across the U.S. in different countries and cultures in dialogue using Thoreau's philosophy, where they identify their own Walden. Because I think we all have our own Walden. This is sort of a continuing theme through most of our programs, is that there's a special place that each of us have. Thoreau's place happened to be here. But we can all make a contribution to protecting our own Waldens across the globe.
Thoreau has echoed over the decades, and now more than a century. And what do we have to learn from him? And what does it mean in 21st century terms? First, we have to live in harmony with nature. What does that mean? That's one thing for one guy living on a pond. You got 260 million people in this country. They can't do that. What does it mean? For us, it means that we have to completely give up the notion that we can only grow our economy if we destroy the environment, and we'll just do it little by little. We have to learn a whole new way of thinking so that we grow our economy by improving the environment and living in greater harmony with ourselves here in this country and around the world. It is a fundamental insight that Americans of all political factions, all backgrounds, all walks of life must embrace.
The following is a question and answer session between Susan Fry and Edward O. Wilson. Susan Fry is Director of Education for the Walden Woods Project, and E.O. Wilson is the award-winning entomology professor from Harvard University, specializing in the scientific study of ants. Dr. Wilson, among many other accomplishments, has been awarded 2 Pulitzer Prizes for his wonderful writing. At the July 4th, 2009 Biodiversity Day run by Walden Woods Project, Susan Fry asked E.O. Wilson questions for the benefit of high school age students interested in the natural sciences.
So the first question is, where was your first Walden?
You know, my first equivalent of Walden, which you're lucky to have here in Massachusetts, was down deep in the south where there are lots of little woodland areas that haven't been cut over completely. And I used to go to one that was fed by a spring and flowed downhill a little bit through a swamp. And nobody in the world at that time knew about that, but I knew about it. And it was a retreat that I went to, and I looked at all the different kinds of creatures I could find the way Henry David Thoreau did when he first started coming to Walden. And I came to think of it as my place. Well, now I know, of course, that Walden is history, and lots of people come to Walden. But there's so much about that lake, and there's so much about the strip of woods around it, and little swampy lowlands, that you can make private within a very short period of time, even on a day when lots of people are there, and you can appreciate it for a natural history, as a natural historian, the way nature is really put together, what makes it work. And that even can lead into questions that are new to science. So it's an exciting sort of an idea to have.
Okay. Where are some of the other important Waldens you've discovered over the years?
I've been looking for, I guess, for Waldens, if we can call them that, the equivalent of them, for all my life. When I was a much younger scientist, for example, I was down exploring in the Florida Keys and found, with a couple of students who were with me, a key called Lignum vitae key. And that was privately owned, and nobody ever went there much, but it was covered by ancient forest of the kind found to the south of the Florida Keys. And these were among the last places in America where you could see a tropical forest in a relatively undisturbed condition. So in going back and forth there, I helped start the conservation project that continues here in Walden because of the history and also because of the wonderful natural history of the unique combination of plants and animals down there. We're always in the outlook for wonderful places like that, and we all should feel obligated somehow to help try to save them for not just for ourselves, but for future generations.
What's the most important thing you think young people should understand about nature or the environment?
You know, people in America, including too many of you who are in school still, really have begun to lose touch with the natural world. And so much so that it makes it important to keep reminding ourselves why it's important. And I'll tell you why it's important. In a very large sense, nature is the real world, and we live on islands in it. And ultimately, we depend on nature in ways most people haven't even begun to give thought to. For example, we need the natural world to restore our water, purify it, hold on to it, and give it to us in a sufficient way of dosing, small doses, instead of running off into the sea and carrying the soil. And while I'm on soil, we need nature to keep restoring the soil, recreating the soil. All those bugs and weeds and other organisms out there are playing a big role in creating new soil and making that available to human use down the line. And then think about all of the discoveries that are going to be made as we continue to explore nature. So many new pharmaceuticals and new products that we'll be using. But you know, also, I think we're beginning to discover that people need nature from the heart. It's because we were born as a species. We were born as a biological species, as part of nature, in a biological world. And that connection to nature is something that's very important to the spirit. And if we destroy it all, if we destroy it mostly so we can't visit it at places like Walden, then something is going to go out of our humanity.
That's perfect. And because that message is also for students outside the U.S. and what you were saying with the water and
Yeah.
that's
you have to give a practical reason.
Right.
Because we are in a society where the only important things for most people is money and celebrity.
Right. Okay, can I ask one more question?
Oh, one more question,
one
I'm
more
sorry.
question.
Yeah, okay.
Just, what are a few important lessons insects teach us?
You know, I'm often asked, why are insects important? You know, why should we worry about a bunch of bugs, even to the point of not wanting to let any of them go extinct, you know, like whole species go extinct. And the reason is that they are such an important part of the world we live in. Even in our fields, even in our agriculture, we depend on insects, for example, to pollinate. Take away the honeybees, that happened recently, and we ended up with great difficulty pollinating crops. But it's much more than that. If insects were to be taken away from us, say you could spray and get rid of all the insects in the world, you know what would happen? The world would collapse. The crops, the forests, everything on the land would collapse and humanity would probably come to an end. Ants alone. If you took all the ants in the world, there are about 10,000 trillion of them alive at any given moment. And if you weighed them, all those trillions of ants, they would turn out to weigh, we roughly estimate, what all the people in the world weigh. Just ants alone. If you took ants away, things would not collapse, but they would become so out of order, so dysfunctional that humanity would have a hard time living without ants. And insects, impossible to live. Okay?
All right.
All right.
Thank you. Thank you. That was
Off camera, I'm willing to exclude mosquitoes.
Yeah, right.
I love it.
Later, Dr. Wilson addressed a broader audience on the importance of promoting the study of our living environment.
I think what a resurgence in natural history, which is, I believe, beginning, tells us is not just that people need nature for all the good psychological reasons and their health, for the health of the environment. That's true. We should be spending more time on the living environment, that's for sure. But what I hope will be seen too by educators and people who have an influence on educators and education, from the teachers, principals, other leaders themselves, to the policy makers, to those who design textbooks and those who design programs for the introduction of biology and its teaching aimed at more advanced levels, is that a big part of science is going to be in the exploration of this planet, the living part of the planet, the biodiversity, which is probably 90% unknown, and that this is crucial for the health of this planet, but also strictly from the point of view of education and how to help young people learn science, so crucial to the future of this country and the world, is that the study of natural history, finding out what's on our planet, is a broad highway that starts from K, certainly by first grade, and forward all the way to the graduate programs in our research universities, into science, the learning of science, the building of that knowledge we need, and then also for those who are particularly well attracted to it, a career in science.
So let us hope and pray that Walden Pond will flourish. Let us hope and pray that people will come to these woods forever from now on to learn not only more about themselves and their relationship with nature, but the proper order of human society and the responsibility of every citizen to preserve it. If that happens, Don Henley and all of his cohorts will have given an astounding gift to America's future. Thank you, and God bless you.